This is a painting of the Garden of Eden. The female figure is Eve, huddled on the ground, filled with horror and remorse after taking a bite from the forbidden fruit that now lies on the grass by her side. This picture, simply titled Eve, was painted in 1885 by Lea Merritt. It was exhibited at the Royal Academy in that year and has been in private collections ever since. The canvas is dominated by the nude figure of Eve, seated on the ground, her upper body bent forward and her arms extended either side of her knees, with her hands brought together, fingers entwined. Her head is bent low upon her knees and turned to the side, so that her face is turned away and not visible. We cannot read the expression on her face, but her posture conveys the intensity of her emotion. Her golden hair falls across her neck and over her thighs to spill over the ground beside her. Around her are the rich greens of the Garden of Eden, with flourishing plants and flowers. The main element of the background is the tree of the forbidden fruit, which the artist has shown, following tradition, as an apple tree, a tree which displays its remarkable nature by bearing blossom and fully ripe fruit simultaneously. The trunk of the tree is at Eve's back, its rough, dark mass contrasting with her smooth, pale golden skin. Branches extend beside her, drooping almost to the ground, heavy with red gold fruit. The apple which she was persuaded by the serpent to pick and eat now lies next to her, near that fallen tress of her golden hair. The inner flesh of the fruit, exposed by her fateful bite, shines out brightly against the dark background. Through a gap on the left, framed by the trunk and leaves of the tree, a spacious but barren landscape can be glimpsed beneath a harsh yellow sky, the world outside Eden, the world of hardship and toil, to which Eve and Adam are shortly to be banished. The artist has positioned the place where Eve's lowered head rests on her right knee at the central point of the canvas, from which the diagonals of her limbs radiate out, creating a tension that expresses her distress and anxiety as her arms twist and her fingers entwine, and her feet shift restlessly against each other. The straight angles of her arms and legs, stretching across into the right-hand side of the canvas, contrast with the curve of her back as she folds her body in on itself and shuts out the outside world in a classic posture of despair. Lea Merritt was born in Philadelphia, but spent her career as an expatriate in Great Britain after settling in London to study in 1870. She studied privately and never took formal art classes, and in the 1870s, life classes for women were only just beginning to be established. But she was convinced that anatomical knowledge and the understanding of the body that came through life studies were essential to the artist if she was to succeed at the highest levels of art. Accordingly, she made her own arrangements, ultimately hiring her own models. But even before then, in the 1860s, she attended lectures and dissections at the Women's Medical College of Philadelphia and minutely copied illustrations from anatomy textbooks. She was, in short, determined to master and paint the nude, a controversial step for a female artist to take in the 1870s and 80s. When she exhibited Eve at the Royal Academy in 1885, the picture was hung in an excellent position, on the line, which is to say, at eye level, not hung too high to be properly seen, a fate known as skied. This was particularly important for a canvas of moderate proportions, as was the case here. At the time, there had been relatively few nudes exhibited by women artists, and the issue remained controversial. The reception for Eve was mixed, with the Times writing of the painting as very beautiful, a remarkable performance, and very much more than a good study of the nude figure. The Hampshire Telegraph describing it as powerful and welcoming the fact that women artists are venturing to paint the nude figure, and the Birmingham Chronicle praising its expressiveness and beauty. For the spectator, however, the painting was simply a rather poor life study in a very unfortunate position, while the Athenaeum dismissed it as a dull and incompetent study from the nude, apparently made in a painting school, with not the smallest technical claim to a place on the line at the Royal Academy. The reviewer in the Yorkshire Post declared that Merritt's theme of Eve in the Garden of Eden was treated so literally as to entirely fail of its purpose. The suggestion was that the inclusion of the bitten apple was heavy-handed, but it is worth pointing out that the painting does not directly treat any part of the story of Adam and Eve as told in the book of Genesis. In the biblical narrative, Eve is tempted by the serpent. She takes and tastes the fruit, and immediately gives it to Adam so that he can taste it as well. Only then are the two, together, struck by the full significance of what they have done and the consequences of their disobedience to the commands of God. Conventional artistic representations of the fall of man show scenes from within this narrative: temptation, consumption, consequences, and Adam and Eve are almost invariably both depicted. But in Merritt's painting, Eve is alone, has tasted the apple alone, and has dropped it and slumped to the ground to hide her face in despair as the horror of her action has struck her. George Frederick Watts was painting a similar conception in Eve Repentant, the final panel of a triptych devoted specifically to Eve at the time when Merritt was painting her Eve, and a similar solitary and despairing Eve can be found in William Henry Longmaid's bronze of around 1897, which is inscribed with an extract from Book 9 of Milton's Paradise Lost. But Merritt's conception of Eve is distinctive and unusual. It is a striking example of the original way she would go about interpreting familiar narratives and themes. Her accomplished treatment of the naked female form in this painting, meanwhile, ensured that Merritt gained a reputation as a notable artistic interpreter of the nude, reinforced 5 years later by the success of her most popular and best-known painting, Love Locked Out. Eve attracted considerable attention at the Royal Academy and was purchased by the architect Alfred Waterhouse. The painting was reproduced in engravings and etchings which were published and widely circulated, and the survival of many printed copies of Merritt's picture today is testament to its popularity.